Another patch, another meta update. Today, we're going to aim to answer the burning questions. What's the most meta, and what should you abuse before the next update? I'm your host, Deathy, and today we're going to go through the broken builds, the broken items, the meta as a whole, as well as an updated tier list. Enjoy. First of all, let's talk about the overall meta. So there's been quite a lot of changes in the meta since the last patch, and a lot of this is due to the changes that they made to weapon items as well as resistances as a whole. So a few different weapon items were nerfed, as well as certain heroes' different weapons. For example, Yamato's gun as well as Kelvin's gun were nerfed, so those builds are not as viable. Same thing for Viscous. And overall, they introduced a lot more sources of resistances in terms of bullet. So if you look here, if you type Spirit Resist in the shop, you'll see that there's not that many items that give Spirit Resistance. If you calculate Spirit Armor and Improved Spirit Armor as one item, there's actually only a total of 9 items that give Spirit Resistance. Spirit Strike and Mystic Vulnerability don't actually give Spirit Resistance. Oh, sorry. There's 10 with Escalating Exposure. But if you type Bullet Resist, you'll see that there's significantly more. I did a quick calculation, and there's around 17. There might be more, but it's roughly almost double the amount of items that give Bullet Resist compared to Spirit Resistance. What this has done to the meta is that since it's much easier to get a lot of bullet resistance, now bullet builds tend to be worse, and spirit builds tend to be better. So this has affected a lot of characters' rankings in the tier list. For example, Haze did receive some nerfs, but she wasn't like nerfed to the ground. But thanks to the changes to armors, etc., she seems to be significantly worse than she was before. So that's it for the overall meta. Let's get into the broken builds. Starting off with support McGinnis. For those who watched the tournament with me this weekend, you know that this was kind of the star of the show. The support McGinnis was run by a lot of different teams, and it was extremely strong. The in-game build is Quig McGinnis Support 930. That's the one that I'm using at the moment. And the idea is to play around McGinnis's wall as well as heal. She has a very strong support kit, so you don't really care too much about the turrets in this build. You mostly have the wall and the heal, as well as the ultimate for some damage. Even if you don't invest at all into the ultimate, it still does decent damage to just help out. The idea is you go healing items such as Health Nova, Healing Booster, Rescue Beam, and then you'll go some other utility items, Improved Cooldown and Duration Extender for your heal, for example, Heroic Aura to buff your teammates, and Armors to just be kind of tanky. Later on, you can get Echo Shard. This allows you to get 2 heals or 2 walls, so you can do the double heal here. This is one way to use it. You can also do the double wall, which is, equally as annoying, like this. And this can be used to just like remove a lot of stamina from the enemy team, etc. So it's a very strong build, but it's a very unique playstyle. So, try this if you want something different from McGinnis. It's extremely strong right now, and especially in organized play, but I would say even in your pubs, the healing heals for 5% max health when you max it out, which is just insane. And when you have healing booster, it heals for 6% max health. So everyone's least favorite build of the patch is the Kutsu Bomb Ivy. This build revolves around getting a few items such as Escalating Exposure, Rapid Recharge, and Refresher, and then having Max Kutsu Bomb, and just kind of basically ulting around like this and dropping your Kutsu bombs. And yeah, nobody likes it. It's very unfun. You basically can have thorns everywhere on the ground, and it does a bajillion damage, and it also farms incredibly quickly. So the in-game build for this is the Downtown Showdown Hydration. That's the one that I think represents one of the better variations. The idea is with these core items, Escalating Exposure, Rapid Recharge, and Refresher, you can basically just play around your Kutsu bombs. There's a bunch of other items that you can go as well for more utility, but these are really like what makes the build work. This build is extremely broken and is definitely going to get nerfed, so abuse it while you still can, and ruin everyone else's fun. Enjoy. Let's talk a little bit about Mirage builds. So there's been a few builds that have been developing. I would say that none of them are 100% solidified in the meta, but one thing everybody agrees on is that Echo Shard is very strong on Mirage. I want to talk about a different Mirage build because I already have a video covering my take on it, but I want to talk about the Buds, aka Car Battery take on it, which is Gun Mirage. The idea here, you go Mystic Shot, Fleetfoot, Headhunter, and you put Surge of Power on your 3 with some utility items. This allows your 3 to do a significant amount of damage and is a different Mirage playstyle. It seems very strong in a different way from Echo Shard Tornado, and you can still go Echo Shard later if you want to. So I'd recommend you guys try this out, and it seems like a very, very potent way to play Mirage at the moment. The in-game build is called Car Battery Mirage. Yamato has been seeing tons of success in high-level play and just in PUBG in general, and the hero is incredibly obnoxious at the moment. So what should you be building? I have a lot of people asking me, should you be building Gun Yamato? Should you be building Spirit Yamato? Well, I have the answer for you. If it wasn't clear in my previous, in what I said at the beginning of the video, the meta is more Spirit-focused, meaning you should go Spirit Yamato. There's a couple things that you can build, but I would recommend following the Mobalytics Spirit Yamato by Hydration build here, which pretty much has everything that you're going to want. So the core items tend to be Torment Pulse, Improved Burst, and then later on you're going to want Mystic Reverb and Refresher just to be able to be in your ult and to do a tons of damage. This build feels very strong right now because Spirit damage feels good and Yamato does a lot of it. Let's move into items. What items are broken at the moment? Well, Melee Charge seems to be very, very potent on a lot of different builds. It gives you bonus heavy damage every 10 seconds, and on top of that, it gives you plus 100% bonus ammo instead of the previous thing, which was it would just reload your mag. So this is very strong because you can get double your mag size, and on top of that, it has 40% heavy melee distance, plus 1 health regen, plus 100 bonus health, and plus 15% weapon damage, which are all really good stats. So the item just seems really value packed at the moment, and I would highly recommend that you guys consider fitting it in your builds if you can. Another item you should be abusing at the moment is Return Fire. This item got buffed very significantly. So Return Fire's base stats are already very good. Gives 125 bonus health, which is the most health that a tier 2 vitality item gives. And it also gives 9 spirit power, which is a lot. It allows you to activate it to return a percentage of the bullet damage and spirit damage that was dealt to you. One thing to keep in mind is that you need line of sight to return this damage, meaning it's not like Blade Mail and Dota. You actually need to see the enemy to be able to return the damage to them. What they did this patch is that they added 25% bullet resist to the active, making it incredibly strong against all sorts of characters. For example, if you're playing against Haze, this item, in my opinion, is a must-buy because if she ults, you can pop Return Fire and deal a ton of damage to her. In a similar fashion, both of the melee 500 cost items are still very strong. Melee Lifesteal as well as Spirit Strike still feel like almost mandatory in lane. They're very, very strong laning tools just thanks to the survivability and damage that they give you. And since Melee Charge is stronger, it also makes those items stronger. So I would recommend you guys try them out as well. In the utility category, Slowing Hex is seeing a ton of play, and right now for the value of 1250, it just seems like too much utility not to buy. I personally buy Slowing Hex on almost every single character that I play. It silences movement abilities, does decent damage, does a movement slow, as well as a stamina slow. So people's dashes are also slower. This item is just really value for 1250. Also gives you a nice amount of spirit and 1 meter per second sprint speed. Ammo Scavenger, despite being nerfed recently, is still broken in my opinion. If you get max stacks, it gives you a total of 24 spirit power for the cost of 500 souls, as well as the 15% ammo and 40 bonus health. I don't think there's a single item that can compete with this for 500 souls. This is also a very strong combo with other items such as Mystic Shot or Spirit Strike, which are cheap items that scale off of Spirit. So if you get a large amount of Spirit with Ammo Scavenger early on, your Mystic Shot is going to get roughly 19 more damage on it just from having Ammo Scavenger. So keep that in mind. I believe we're going to be in a bit of a Crippling Headshot meta because there's a lot of armors. People are buying armors in all sorts of ways because it's so easy to get a lot of bullet resist now, which makes, resist shred much more critical if you want to actually do significant amounts of damage. Crippling Headshot is the best source of shred in the game at the moment, and so I think it's a very strong item that you see in a lot of builds. Last but not least, we have a Rescue Beam. Rescue Beam has been an item that has not been changed in quite some time, but was always very strong. A lot of people kind of knew this item was broken, but it just wasn't seeing play in pubs quite yet. But recently, I would say in the past couple of days, I've been seeing this item bought more and more in high MMR pubs. And, it's very clear that this item is not okay. Just the healing and the stats are pretty good, but the fact that you can pull an allied hero towards you and to basically just save them from all sorts of trouble is insane. And the cast range is 36 meters, which is pretty large. All right, so getting into the tier list. In the first tier, I've created a Mirage tier. It's kind of unclear where Mirage fits into the tier list yet, but I would say that if I had to put him into a tier right now, I would probably put him in S tier. Still feels like a very strong hero. I don't know if he's like the best hero in the game. He might be broken, he might not be, but I would say that he's at the very least A tier, and I think he might be S tier for now. Very strong, can teleport, global presence, just good laning stage, a lot of damage, a lot of utility, etc. Moving on to S plus tier, we have Ivy, Wraith, and Yamato. No surprise to me, these are all spirit-based builds. Spirit-based builds do a ton of damage at the moment, and these characters just seem to abuse them best. Wraith does a ton of damage with her cards. Yamato is just like all around just a million spirit damage, and Ivy has the broken Kutsu bomb build. So all of these characters feel like they should be, very high priority, and if you play these characters and if they're your mains, you should be winning a lot in your games. In S tier, we have Dynamo, Viscous, Pocket, McGinnis, and Infernus. I want to say that Dynamo is S tier only in organized play. In your regular games, in you guys' games, probably Dynamo is more like B tier, meaning he's still good but doesn't feel as good. The main use of Dynamo is his Black Hole as well as his second ability, which allows him to dodge a bunch of stuff. But other than that, he's not that good. Viscous is still really strong. His ultimate is strong. His laning stage is strong. He has a lot of nuke, a lot of spirit damage. Punch items are still good, etc. Pocket, despite being nerfed again, is still very strong. His ultimate still remains incredibly strong. His nuking power, etc. Like, not that much has changed about him, and he was always really good. McGinnis is the biggest change from previous tier lists. She used to be in C tier. With the recent changes to her heal, the heal AoE made her a lot better as a support. The heal is so big now, you don't even need to scale it that well. And, people have just figured out, like, if you build around the heal, you build Rescue Beam, you build Healing the Health Nova, etc., you're incredibly strong and incredibly useful to your team. Infernus in a spirit damage meta is always going to be good. He's still really good, so I would put him at S tier. I think he's pretty high priority, but I don't think he's like super broken like the other characters. In A tier, I put Kelvin and Abrams. Kelvin is still a lot of utility, and his ultimate is good. His grenade is good. Like, all of his abilities are good, so I think he's in A tier. He's not as broken as he was last patch. Abrams, I also put in A tier, but I could see being an S tier. A lot of Abrams items give a ton of bullet resist, so he's very tanky now. And, he just feels like a very strong character. Lash is in A tier. I believe that he is better this patch than he was last patch, thanks to just the overall meta changes. Spirit build on him feels pretty good. A lot of people on Lash have been going bullet resist shredder, as well as Quicksilver reload on the Flog, just to get a little bit more of a hybrid Lash going. So just to clarify things for people, this is not like a gun Lash build, it's still like a hybrid Lash build. You're still maxing your Flog and things like that. But yeah, it feels very good. I put Hayes in A tier. Honestly, I could see her being a bit lower. She still has a decent amount of, like, she still has a lot of damage potential. The problem is the bullet resistance is so easy to get now that she doesn't feel nearly as impactful, but I don't think she's a bad character. I put Bebop in A tier. Bebop's ultimate is still very strong. His hook potential is strong, and you can also build him in a more supportive way with Divine Barrier, Rescue Beam, things like that. So he feels like he has a lot of utility. He's still very inconsistent, however. Like, if you're not hitting hooks, you're, not having the maximum utility as Bebop. So I could see him being a little bit lower than this. The Shiv nerfs are starting to kind of be apparent. There's a lot of different nerfs that have hit him in the past couple of patches, and now it's starting to feel like he's no longer like as OP as he was. His passive is still really strong. A lot of his abilities are still strong, but he struggles a little bit more with maintaining rage now, as well as generating it, which makes him just a little bit worse. I think he's still really good, but I would put him in A tier at the moment. And then Paradox, I also put an A tier. Swap is just always going to be really useful. The wall is always really useful. All of Paradox's abilities are good at the moment. She's just not like a super hard carry like she used to be, but she has a ton of utility. Put Bow and Krill in B tier. Doesn't feel like the hero is as impactful as he once was. Grab is always going to be good, so I don't think this hero is ever going to be bad. But other than Grab right now, the rest of his kit feels a little bit underwhelming. He's very strong in lane, but it also just feels like there's a lot of things that just stop the Grab, right? A lot of stuns, a lot of ways to kind of save people. Rescue Beam also is really good against Mo, etc. Lady Guys has moved up from C tier to B tier. The changes to the meta overall seem to have made her better, as well as the buffs she got to her cooldown, etc. Vindicta doesn't feel that great anymore. My teammate Zach has been playing a lot of Vindicta, just doesn't feel that good anymore. I think it's still fine, but the hero doesn't feel like she's as powerful as she once was. I'm not entirely sure why, because she actually does do a lot of spirit damage, but it's just that she doesn't feel as good as she once was. Warden, bottom of B tier. He's okay. Feels a little underwhelming compared to a lot of the rest of the crew. And the changes to his cage are a little bit weird. They're not like worse per se, but it does make it feel like a little bit more weird now that they gave the cage more range. 7 is in C tier. I think 7 carry doesn't seem that good. And 7 support 7 is still playable, still viable, but it got significantly nerfed. So like before, last patch 7 was probably like S tier because of the support 7 build. Now the support 7 build got nerfed pretty hard, so I put him in C tier. And Great Talent I put in D tier because he still feels like he provides a lot of damage early on in the laning stage, and he can provide damage as the game goes on, but he feels too punishable and not useful enough outside of just his big nukes.